I wanted to start talking about like how you started out acting. And obviously you're a model and an actress and a content creator. So
Yeah.
how did you get started? And what would you say is do you have a favorite? Do you prefer modeling, acting, or
I
obviously
definitely,
consecration is a big thing as well,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. I definitely prefer acting. I kind of started into it by accident. So initially in high school, I was in theater club. I was in theater class and everything. Loved it then. It was the first time I really got to, have fun in high school because I was kind of pathetic and very like melancholy. I didn't really enjoy the high school experience, but I knew the one thing that I loved was theater. And so I didn't really do anything with it in college, but there came a point where someone I knew that I met from a fashion show that I had done, her daughter was a background on Stranger Things. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's one of my favorite shows. And she was like, well, I can give you the information if you want to apply for background. And I was like, oh, okay. I know she even mentioned like it's pretty hard to get on the set, but at least you'll have the info if you're just interested. So I was really dead set because I wanted to do it. And didn't think I would. I went through like a couple different rounds of surprisingly like callbacks that they did for background at the time because they have so many people try to apply even before they put out the official casting calls for it. And I got it. I was really surprised. It was kind of a funny moment where I had been working at a restaurant at the time and I like snuck into the bathroom and saw that I got it. And in between then they asked for like a dancing audition because they wanted me to be a jazzercise girl. And I ended up booking it, went over there, fell in love with just the idea of being on set, getting hair and makeup done and costumes. I know the costume woman, she really liked me because she just put me in like the coolest stuff that she had. And like from there on out, I was like, okay, this is kind of crazy, but I want to do more of this. I started meeting more actors, getting on more projects. And I kind of made a bet with myself as far as if I wanted to continue because I know everyone kind of says, oh, I want to be an actor. And what ended up happening, ironically, my one friend that I'm living with right now, um, I auditioned for this TV pilot and I was like, okay, that's kind of a far-fetched thing. If I book this, I'll continue. If not, forget acting. I'll just focus on modeling and stuff. And I booked my first audition, which is very seldom that something like that happens. So ever since then, I was like, I kept to that commitment. But ironically, we never filmed it because there was no budget apparently for the thing that I auditioned for. But ever since then, I've just kept doing it. And I've honestly, out of all three, content creation, acting, and modeling, acting is definitely my favorite.
that's so cool. And when you started out with the Stranger Things audition, did you have an agent then? And did you, was it just for modeling that you had your agent?
So at the time, I just had an agent for modeling. I had no agent whatsoever for acting or anything. You really don't need an agent when it comes to applying for background stuff. So that was a really cool way for me to just kind of get into the industry and like learn more about it because I walked into it completely clueless. And then there were just more people on set that were willing to help me out.
And that's so cool because it was your first audition, right? For anything of that caliber.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it was
What?
just background. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was so cool to see that because I want to say by the time that I got on set, it was a group of, and it was still technically a catacall, it was a group of 300 people needed for the mall scene. But they said even just before they put out casting calls, they had over like 1,000 applicants of people looking to just do background on the show.
For sure, because everyone wants to be on a set and like see what happens, especially on
Mm-hmm.
something like Stranger Things. So, what was the callback process like? What did they make you do, or what were you asked to
Really,
do?
it wasn't much of anything because the main thing for background is that they'd want to make sure the big thing is really the hair, and they wanted to make sure that you had the commitment of either getting, if you're a guy, a mullet, perm, if you're a girl, getting the 80s curly bang, and just basically what you're willing to do with your hair was the primary thing that they're looking for. So initially, I sent it in. They were happy that I was being consistent with my look. And then there came to a point where it was like specified that. So there's always a chance that you can get promoted on set. And one of the things that they had put out for was for dancers. And I was like, perfect. I have dance experience. I love dancing. I have ever since I was younger. And it was for a jazzercise girl. So they wanted us to send in a clip of maybe just like 60 seconds of us dancing. So I kind of took from Dacre Montgomery's audition and went completely wild with it. He had like 80s music in his audition. So I used like Michael Jackson and I just completely went into it, sent it in. And I want to say after 5 minutes of sending that, I was booked.
Mhm. That's awesome. And so, what was this process? What was it like on set? What was the like? How did it all work?
Mm-hmm. Easily, to me at least, because I kind of look at things through a rose-colored lens. It was a magical experience because, again, this is my very first time being on set, and I'm being on set for one of my favorite television shows. So essentially, the process was we went to go get fitted, we went to go get makeup done, and I'm used to getting costumes and makeup done just from modeling. But we get taken to set. We're all kind of lined up, double checked by PAs, and we're walked to the mall, and already there's paparazzi lining outside of pretty much where we're going to be filming. It was kind of crazy. And you just walk in, and this decrepit looking mall from the outside, in the inside it was like a time capsule, so everything was all 80s out, neon signs everywhere. And then we were all kind of like in awe because it looked really great. And then we were taken to our holding, which was definitely not the prettiest thing to sit in, but overall it was a really cool experience just to see all the working equipment, seeing everyone working together on it. So it's nice. And then of course you start making friends, you start making fun of them for like how their costumes look or the crazy bangs that they had to get.
And so after Stranger Things, after that experience, where did you go from there? Did you look to get an agent? Did you look to do more auditions? Like what happened after you stopped shooting that?
Yes and no. So initially, what I found out is that there are a lot of people that do background for a living. And I thought it was interesting. At the time, I definitely really needed the money because I had just moved over to Georgia. I was going back and forth between Florida. So I met other people that actually do it for a living. And they're like, here are all the places you can sign up for just to see if you really like it on set. Because Stranger Things is done one way, but there are all these other television shows. So really, it was more so for me to get the experience of what it is like to be on set, because a lot of people don't realize you're working long, long hours. And even, let's say, for the mall scene that people saw that probably took maybe took up a minute or two of screen time, took about 3 months to film. So that's something that people aren't used to. And I just wanted to see how it would be on each set, even if I'm just doing background. And then I started to meet more friends that were actual actors on, proper speaking roles and things of that nature. And then I started to look into things like trying to build up my reel. I was definitely the actor at some point that just like did a cold submission to agents to see if anyone would just pick me based off of a look. I didn't get anything back. So I really heavily focused on trying to just get auditions for smaller projects that were in the area.
That's cool. And something that we've talked about before, but it's really true that you build relationships with people on set, and it's a lot of the work that you do, you end up meeting people that help you down the track, or like they inspire you to do certain things moving forwards. And sometimes people look at stuff and go, oh, I don't want to be a background actor, or I don't want to do something that's beneath me. But you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who you're going to meet and what sort of relationships you're going to build with people. So it's all about networking.
Well, not only that, again, I think a lot of people count out the fact that with the entertainment industry so crazy, you never know what could happen. There was one day where I had submitted for a background gig just because I really wanted to be on set again. I haven't been on set for a while. I think it was a little bit before COVID. And even before I stepped on set or anything, I got an email back saying like, hey, your director's picked. We're actually going to promote you to a SAG contract. So even just in that moment, had I said, oh, this is a stupid background gig, I'm so above this, why should I not do this? It still ended up leading me to getting my first SAG contract. So everyone kind of feels differently when it comes to background, but I think we had this conversation before where recently on a set, there were 6 background people who got promoted as well. So for me, it's all about, aside from the artistic element of it, but the possibility of it is why I love acting so much, because you never know what could happen. You could stick to a script and have it turn out one way, or you can improv something and it be something completely different and be magical. So that's, I think what I love about it is that there's so much room for opportunity and you never know. Like right now I'm living with a friend, that one audition I told you about where I booked it, but it never got filmed. I still met her, and we're very good friends at this point. Or even for some other people, something that I'm going to be filming tomorrow, the director and writer for this piece I met doing background for Stranger Things. So it's like those little things where it's, had I not done this, and even if it seems minuscule, I wouldn't have been able to make this other connection.
Yeah. And so how are the auditions going, and how have you adapted to doing self-tapes, and what have you learned by doing more auditions?
What have I learned? I feel like a lot of it is just making sure I hold myself accountable to try to get the best quality and my self tapes as possible. I'm about to film, I think, 2 different auditions tomorrow. And me personally, even though I have an agent that's sending me stuff, I feel like I've been slacking as far as like personal self submission. So really just trying to hone in on making sure that my resume looks flawless, getting more material for my reel, and everything that I need in order to really feel much more sufficient as an actor. Because like I feel like a lot of people kind of stop at the fact of like, oh, I have an agent, I'll just wait for them to send me stuff. But I always like being proactive and making sure that, you know, if I can do anything to make my self tapes look a little bit better, do that. If there's more content that I can get for my reel, you know, just being constantly working on myself in order to make, even though that little 60-second segment you may see of me on screen has amounted with all these other things I'm doing that other people don't see.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of people do that. They wait for the agent to send them stuff before they actually even start doing an audition. It's the people who practice doing stuff, even if it's not just an audition, they're just practicing doing stuff on camera, putting down a scene. That is such good exercise for you as an actor, rather than just sitting and waiting for your agent to send you this one-off opportunity that you're magically gonna nail and book the role.
And aside from that, I've also been working on building up more skills to add on my resume as well. So soon I'll be, actually right before this call, I was supposed to do a little bit of archery because I'm trying to get more honed in on that. And then also starting up more dancing classes and gymnastics as well. So I feel like aside from just a self tape, it's also the skill segments for, especially for certain roles that you want to take on, more fighting and things like that. So, because I want to do more cool action roles, but I want to make sure I have the preparedness so that I can justify that.
That's great. That's just building up those skills and like making yourself as useful as possible is amazing, because that's what casting directors look for, and especially in smaller roles too. When you're climbing the ladder and you're working your way up, and you want to try and get involved in as many things as possible, so you're making yourself as useful as possible, which sounds awesome. That sounds like you're doing exactly the right thing.
Thank you.
And how's TikTok going? I know you've started
Oh
off.
gosh.
When did you? Let's talk about TikTok a bit, because you started a bit earlier than me, I think. Like, how did that start, and what is your goals, and like, what do you want to do with TikTok?
So TikTok was kind of an accident as well for me, because I started posting stuff involving more tech stuff. Really, I was just kind of using it as something to do for fun and to share information that I think would be helpful to other people, because that's what I understood to be useful on TikTok. I don't really want to post dances and things like that. And then I noticed more people were enjoying the fact that I was sharing casting calls, because I guess people didn't understand that there are opportunities with open castings, and I've applied for some myself. And I always felt bad when I saw like, oh, this is a great opportunity, but I don't fit, you know, the character. I wish there were more people that I knew that I could send this off to. And I was like, well, you know what, let me just post something on TikTok and see how it works. And that ended up becoming a big thing. A lot of followers were excited, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could audition for this, or I didn't know I could potentially be in this show. Or, you know, one of the big ones is like Euphoria has open castings, or there's a lot of Netflix shows that you could potentially be on. And so more people were getting interested in it. So I was like, okay, I'll keep sharing more stuff. And then more people started asking me for advice and things like that. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm on the road pretty much to 100K. And I've never imagined that, you know, that would be something that would happen to me when it comes to social media, just because primarily I had focused so much on Instagram and, you know, essentially for it to be my modeling portfolio and for my content creation. But with TikTok, it just became so much more adventurous. Like the fact that I'm even talking to you right now, doing a podcast, like I would have never met you otherwise. So I think it's been an awesome way for me to connect with other actors and just like mess around, aside from like having fun, but help people as well.
Yeah, totally. And it's nice to have that happen as kind of like a happy accident. You started posting stuff and people engage with it, and you're like, oh, okay, this is actually something that I could potentially help people out with. And I feel like that's what TikTok's really good for, like finding people you can help with and share your experiences with too.
Because that's kind of been my thing. Just in life in general, is always try to pay it forward and help someone else if I can. The only reason I even ended up on Stranger Things is because someone had mentioned it to me, like, oh, you like the show, then do this. And now I'm getting DMs and things from people saying like, hey, thank you so much, because, you know, you had shared this casting call. I was able to be on one of my favorite shows, or like I got a call back for Euphoria, or even just people feel more comfortable, like it's possible to follow the crazy dream of wanting to become an actor or an actress. So ultimately, I feel like I have a little bit more purposeful content. Yes, I post my silly videos here and there, but ultimately it ended up, like you said, being a happy accident.
Yeah, and that's what's most rewarding too, getting those messages of people going, you've actually helped me and thank you so
Hmm.
much. And yeah, that's what's really fulfilling to me personally as well by doing
Hmm.
TikTok and
Oh, I can
just
imagine for you, especially because you're actually giving, feedback on how they can improve so people don't feel like they're just, I don't know, not making improvements. Because especially with this field, you get a lot of rejection. And I feel like for people who aren't used to that, it can be very deterring to want to continue. But if you just tell them like, hey, especially from the perspective of
completely
the
normal.
person that was, giving the yeses and the nos, you can let them know like, hey, like some things you can't help. Sometimes it's someone else got a role because they're 2 inches taller than you, not because their audition was necessarily greater, but it just fit whatever they needed. But if you're able to give that advice to people to even make the smallest difference, not only in their audition, but their self-confidence as an actor, like that's that's great.
It's huge. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And so what about any other social media stuff? Are you working on other things? Like, do you have a YouTube channel, stuff you're working on there too?
Yes. So I started YouTube technically last year, but I started it and I abandoned it. And I'm kind of going through a little bit of a rut with YouTube right now. I started gaining some traction on YouTube because essentially there's like so much to explain with acting. It's almost impossible to do it in just 60-second clips on TikTok. So I started to expand it onto my YouTube channel and people seem to take notice, or even like my experiences being on set and everything. People
Hmm.
enjoy that type of content because it seems like such a dream. So I'm working more on YouTube. Eventually, I'd like to be able to make that kind of like, a full-time little side gig or something, just because it seems like it'd be so much more fun and more in line with what I like, which is being in entertainment and being in media as well. So ultimately, yes, I'd like to eventually move more towards YouTube content. But TikTok, it's so easy. It's almost too easy. I could be lying in bed and just remember, hey, I need to post something and like make a quick video in like a minute and post it.
Yeah. I feel like I've been slacking off on TikTok a bit too because like you
Yeah.
say, it is easy, but then also you want to make sure it's something that's useful as well. You want to make sure that it's
Hmm.
information that people will actually find useful, and it's not something that you keep repeating yourself. Sometimes,
Hmm.
especially with casting is not as complicated as people think it is, and you can
Yeah.
find yourself repeating yourself. And
Hmm.
honestly, it's not a bad thing, but because lots of the things you say are useful, but when you're creating TikTok videos and putting them on a profile where it's like 50 other videos, I think sometimes
Hmm.
you've also got to remember that not everyone has seen all your videos as well.
Yes.
Um,
Definitely. It's so interesting. I'll get like sometimes, especially with TikTok, you'll get a little bit of like sassy comments. And I'm like, wait, this is something I covered in my other video. And I was like, oh, this is just a passerby like saying something kind of crude and then just going on about their business. But yeah, definitely. Not everyone always watches your videos, but there are the few people that will actually DM me and be like, thank you so much. I watch all of your stuff and it's helped me so much. I feel like I've gone from point A to point B, or even I have some people asking like, hey, I know you mentioned, at some point you want to get an agent, but I'm having trouble. And that's like, well, we have to do this stuff in between. So I can always refer
mhm.
back to other things in case, you know, and that
Yeah.
has always found to be helpful.
And also, yeah, I think you should start doing live videos too, even if we did one
Oh
together
gosh,
to start
yeah.
off with, because I think you'll find that people will ask you those things and you're able to answer a lot more eloquently than you would be in a
Hmm.
comment or another
Yeah.
video because you have
Yeah. We only
unlimited
have
time
like
to talk
20
about it.
seconds. Hmm. I mean,
Exactly.
I love your lives. Your lives to me are so informative and I feel super comfortable. I don't know. I feel weird about setting aside that time because I don't know how long it would end up being. I don't know if I should do like a 30-minute or an hour. I hope it wouldn't end up being an hour because that seems like so much time dedicated to live. But at the same token, I'd be interested in getting to know these people more and have more camaraderie between like the people that are watching me and looking for more content from me.
You should totally do it because, and don't worry about the time thing either, because you'll find the time goes so fast when you're responding to a comment or someone asks you
Mhm.
another question and it just keeps going and going. And you find yourself, sometimes I've sat down and been like, okay, I'm going to do a quick live. And then 2 hours later, I'm finishing.
Oh
So
wow, 2 hours.
yeah.
Oh wow. Hmm.
So I feel like,
Um,
but if you just started, you could just, you'll find your way because it's more
mhm.
about the engagement with people. And hey, if there's no comments, there's no comments, but I can guarantee you there'll be plenty of people asking questions, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to casting and like finding an agent, because it's lots of
Mhm.
lots of information that people find really useful.
Oh yeah. Well, I remembered because there is a way that you can see how many people like of your followers are active in like if potentially you want to do a live. And I saw there was
Hmm.
like at one point it was like I think it was like 12,000. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'd be able to do if 12,000 people were, if that were the case. I don't know what the percentages of people that actually like sit down and like watch, but it's like, I don't know what like 12,000 people asking questions and that. So that's where it was a little like nerve wracking, but I was like, I feel like this could be my next leap of just like get over it. And so I can talk to people. Cause ultimately, like once I start talking, like I'm great. It's just a matter of like, I hope I can answer everyone's questions. And like, cause even I remember last time I was on one of your lives and someone's like, oh wow, he skipped over my question. I was like, wait a minute, with all the things like scrolling up on the screen, it's so easy to miss things. So it's just like, I don't know, getting used to that next step and like integrating with social media.
Totally. Well, if you wanted to do it, we could do one together and you could like answer questions together, because you can do lives with
Yeah.
someone else. If they go live, you go live. We can do it
Oh, I
together
didn't
and
know
you.
you could do that. Absolutely. I would love to because I kind of already tune into your lives anyway when I see it. We can definitely do that and just
Yeah,
set up a time.
exactly.
I feel like I'd be more comfortable if I had like a buddy and
Yeah,
we just
exactly.
do
And
it
then we can
that way.
answer the questions together. So if you wanted to do that, we can do that, and then you can even if it was just to get you started doing lives, because I think it would be something you'd find really useful.
Definitely. And I feel like it'd be good for you too, so that way you can get more people to at least go over their stuff and like ask questions. Because I feel so bad when some people ask me certain things. And I'm like, well, I'm just an actor in this situation. I'm not a casting associate or casting director, but hey, I have Adam who has plenty of experience in that. So,
And you're also from the other side, because obviously I was never an actor and I haven't been an actor. And obviously I know lots of actors, but I don't have answers to every question, like the SAG stuff,
oh, yeah.
union things, and just stuff
hmm
from an actor's point of view that I wouldn't know anything about. So
hmm Definitely. Yeah. I think we should definitely pencil that in some point whenever we're both available, just because next week is going to be a little hectic because I'll be on set.
yeah, let's talk about that. So what are you doing? I know obviously you can't talk about exactly what you're doing, but what are you working on coming up?
So tomorrow I'll be on set. It's really just shorter promotional content for a web series I'm supposed to be in. It's called Progenies, and it is a kind of like a spin-off or a rendition of a popular Disney Channel show. However, it's the way I see it, it's like a combination of that Disney Channel show, but with the aesthetic and the drama that is in Euphoria. So that's what I found interesting initially because I love that show. So it's just seeing, the character I play, she's kind of like a preppy snob. Everything takes place in high school, so that much I can say. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Again, the person that I met on set for Stranger Things is the one that's directing, writing, and she's even in it as well. So that's what I'll be doing on Sunday and I believe on Saturday as well. And then followed by, I believe, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll be on set working for a Netflix production. Um, Really, I guess it's going to be like a closer, more intimate scene. Not anything too crazy, but I'm just excited for it. It's a project with a couple of really good actors. I think Jamie Foxx, Dave Franco is in it, which I'm really excited for because he's in one of my other favorite movies, which is Nerve. And I think it's supposed to be like kind of like a dark comedy, essentially. So I think it'll just be interesting to see how they put us all together and set. I tried my costume. I wasn't excited by it, but again, like I don't have anything major. So I'm really just happy to be on set again. That's my main thing, is just going through the whole process of seeing the camera, seeing sound, seeing everything all together.
Mm-hmm. That's so exciting. And how is COVID working out with that? Because I know you've mentioned to me, but maybe for everyone else, like what is the process with shooting with COVID happening as well?
hmm So with COVID, it's kind of interesting. Obviously, I know in Australia you guys don't have to worry about it as much because it's pretty much non-existent over there. But here, especially in Atlanta, a huge city, pretty much if you want to work on any set, you either have to sequester, which is when you are basically being paid to not go out and be paid not to catch COVID, and then on top of that, you're also being paid for COVID testing. So anytime before you get on any set, they're going to go ahead and test you to make sure that you can't spread anything on set. And even then, sometimes there's been a couple of scares where, someone came up positive and there might have been a minor outbreak. But for me, especially the set that I'm going to be on, I've been sequestering for about 2 weeks now and then testing like every other day to make sure that I'm good and everything. All of that is paid for, which is nice before I even get on set. So something that normally would be 3 days of filming extends to about 2 weeks sequestering and then 3 days on set. It's just
Mm-hmm.
everything is so much more. It takes so much longer in order to accomplish. but I'm grateful because that means we're still getting stuff done. It's not completely halted.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, yeah, like you say, in Australia, it's not so much of a bigger deal, but everywhere else or most places, I'm assuming the fact that you're getting paid 2 weeks in advance for 3 days worth of filming is like unheard of.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and even for some other sets, there was another one that I was going to do, and this was just background as well, um, where they also pay for your hotel as well. So depending on what they need, if it's something very specific, like look wise, they're willing to pay for your hotel, pay for your sequestering, pay your per diem, which is essentially what would be your allowance for food and like other little things like that. And then on top of like a little daily rate or something for yourself. So in a sense, like, yes, it's horrible that, there's COVID. Don't get me wrong, it's terrible, but it's kind of great for people that are, looking to experience being on set and also, make a good amount of money doing it. And just the fact that they're still filming and taking all of these precautions. I mean, in order to even be able to film anything, you need to have some type of COVID protocol to begin with. And even if you're, even if you're, let's say, not on camera, anytime you're off camera, you always have to have your mask on, you always have to sanitize, always have to, socially distance. So overall, like, it's still hectic with everything going on, especially here in the States with the pandemic, but we're slowly and surely able to get back on set and do things.
And what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out or someone who's looking to get on a set for the first time?
Oh, a lot of different things. If you can, if you're able to, if you're in a major city where they do filming for like bigger productions, I would definitely say try doing background. Everyone talks crap about it, but just try it once, because a lot of people say, I notice there's a difference between wanting to be an actor and wanting to be famous. A lot of people think that in correlation of becoming an actor that you will be famous. And if that's why you want to get into this field, I would tell you to quit, essentially, because when, at least even if you work background, you're kind of at the bottom of the barrel. And if you can love this type of field, even at the bottom of the barrel, you'll probably love it working your way up. So I would definitely say, if you can, work background and make sure it's paid background. Even if you get on sets for like smaller student films, I would start doing that as well. If you get speaking roles, just to build up a resume. And especially for, I get like a lot of younger people saying like, oh, I don't know what to do. There's nothing wrong with like making your own content. A lot of, especially for people that actually create the films, they started off making crappy YouTube movies that they were super proud of, posted, and just went with it. At some point, yeah, you're going to have your bad video, your bad audition, just your bad time on set. But if you can still fall in love with it, even with all of that, and just continuously work on yourself and never give up, I mean, you get somewhere essentially with it. So I think starting off, try to do the little things. Don't just knock it off because people say, I'm beyond this or I'm beyond that. Because at some point, like, if you're not consistently a working actor, there's not much else you can do. But you can always work on skills and things like that. Pretty much just be ready to constantly work on yourself and not give up on the fact whether or not it's, exactly what you like to do. Because Spider-Man, Tom Holland didn't start off being Spider-Man, Tom Holland. He was someone who was always in gymnastics, always dancing, was in movie festivals, things of that nature, smaller films. And also another thing too, you don't have to go to school in order to be a proficient actor or proficient in entertainment and media. There's plenty of stories. I think I posted this one where it was an open call for Netflix, and I was like, I think I was going over headshots with you, and how essentially in the beginning headshots really don't matter as long as they can get a good idea of like who you are and what you look like. This girl, I think she used her prom photo to submit for an open call, and now she's in, what was it, Never Have Ever, one of the biggest Netflix shows, and that was without any experience. So I feel like ultimately, like, yes, try to work your way up, but don't ever count yourself out and say like, oh, I'm not experienced enough for this, or I'm not, because at the end of the day, even if you don't feel like you're the best actor, what will make the difference is the director. A good director will always be able to help bring out, the best in an actor. So really just never counting yourself out. Sorry if that was a little long-winded.
No, it was really, all of
I
it was
get
really
so
good
many,
advice.
I get so many of these questions, especially for young people that just don't feel like they're able to do anything. And I was like, well, understand what your intention is for this first. Like for me, I kind of fell into it by accident. I initially was just really focused on modeling.
Mm-hmm.
But then I actually experienced what it's like being on set, and I was like, this is so much more fun, and you get free food while you're on set. So that's another thing too that ended up being a little bit of a reason for me wanting to continue.
Yeah, I think that was all really good advice. And I get those questions too. I get lots of people asking me, is it too late for me to start acting? I'm this age, I'm that age. And I'm like, it's never too late.
Oh
It's never,
no.
it's never too late. You could start when you're 50 and you could be amazing by the time you're 55. Like, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter how old or young you are.
Issa she's someone I look up to, and I believe she's nonstop working. She started off just by having like videos that she made on YouTube. So, and now she has movies, she has the Insecure franchise, and she has so much more that she's working towards. There's another director that I follow that I really adore his work, and I got the chance of kind of getting to know him a little bit before he like popped off. His name is Morgan Cooper, and he started off doing these really beautifully crafted, I mean, just cinematic masterpieces of just kind of like slice of life of like what it's like trying to be um, I believe it was a cameraman getting into, being able to film stuff for people, or just little things here and there of just what he's seen in his life and what he's experienced. Well, now he's someone that is, I believe he's in charge of the remake for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with the approval of Will Smith, and it's gonna be on Peacock and everything. And that just started from him doing his own little thing. And I had talked to him because I was like, oh, I really like the way you take your photos for things on set. It looks so cinematic. And now he's, has pretty much the dream goal of what it is to be a director. So it's one of those things like, no matter how small you start off, don't count yourself out and don't ever say you're not worthy enough of anything. And also don't worry about age. I think that's a big thing is people think you have to be super young and super malleable in order to get into acting. And the thing is, you don't. Literally, I see casting calls all the time for things that you don't see very often, or things that wouldn't be seen as glamorous, like people who are amputees or people who have very distinct features. You don't have to be a supermodel, or you don't have to be like some of these beautiful A-listers in order to get into it.
Yep. And it's not about how you look either. It's about the work that you put out there. It's about what you've
Mm-hmm.
been working on. Like you say, your skills. It's all about building up and snowballing from experience to experience to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know where it's going to go. Like if you put out work that you ultimately are working on that you love and you enjoy right now, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter where you end up at the end of the day because you're
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff that you're enjoying in the current moment.
Oh, absolutely. Thoroughly, it's about what you enjoy as you're doing it. And also, a big thing I think that's important is how you're able to work with other people, because it is a very collaborative process. And if you can't listen to basic instructions, or you can't abide by taking input from other people, it's going to be harder to get involved with the industry that is literally built upon the backbones of everyone trying to make something beautiful happen.
Mhm.
So it's really just enjoy yourself, have fun, and make those, worthwhile connections, and make sure you can grow. It's really what makes acting hard to me, I think, is just people are so used to the instant gratification that we have going on in society, whereas acting in long term, it's you're just growing the entire time. Some people may grow faster in one sense, some people may grow slower in another sense, but the thing is, you never know. Some people may have had an absolute huge amount of growth but hardly get roles that they really want, or some people have slowly grown but end up starting to really get to where they want to be. So
Mhm.
age, skill set, to me at least, doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of where your heart is.
Yeah, that's really, really great advice. I completely agree. And so,
Mhm.
what have you got? I know we've talked about what you've got coming up, but where do you want to go with your acting work in the next, say, like 6 months, a year, and then further? Like, what are your goals ultimately?
Next 6 months to a year. Oh wow. Because I just sometimes don't even think about what I'm gonna do then.
Hey, I'm exactly the
Ultimately,
same.
yeah, I'm very much like a take it as it comes type of thing. 6 months to a year. So 6 months, I definitely want to get more of a proficient reel that I feel way more comfortable with sharing, and feel more just feel like I have more of the material to present to casting directors, so that if they question my skill set, I can be like, here's what I can do, and here's proof of it. So really heavy on the demo reel. I finally got really nice headshots, which I showed you recently. And then as far as gigs, and I also finally have an agent. I definitely want to try to get network television because ultimately I really love the idea of, having a reoccurring role or something of that nature on a television series. That's really, I mean, if I could make that happen in 6 months a year, I'd be like super, super happy. I know usually you want to start with more guest stars and co-stars, but I feel like I can probably squeeze myself into something reoccurring. Ultimately I'd be super stoked with that. But I understand, sometimes patience can be a virtue with that.
Yeah, patience is important. And hey, it may not be a year, it might not be 2 years, but it could be 3 or 4 years down the track. So you
Mm-hmm.
know, you honestly never know. And I really just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I think a lot of the things you had to say were really poignant, and it was really good advice. So let's do a live sometime soon, and I'll talk to
Yes.
you again as well soon once you've finished with your Netflix shooting, because I'm
Thank
sure that's going to
you.
take up a lot of your time.
Oh yeah, well, thank you so much for having me and just like essentially making sure I'm good with my auditions because now again because of TikTok I have someone new that I can talk to you about just the field in general, and I feel like sometimes with people who haven't been in entertainment it can sound very hectic, very crazy, but it's always good to make these connections because that's kind of what a big part of this industry is about.
Totally, and auditions are not as scary as people think. So
Oh, not at all.
send me your audition tapes, and I'll talk to you soon. Yeah.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Monica.